Our Story Productions presents Martin County on TV, spotlighting the organizations, businesses, and citizens who are making a difference in our community today. And with interviews and stories done by local television shows over the last 25 years, here you're sure to learn more about the county we call home. Get ready, for this is Martin County on TV.
Hello and welcome. I'm Jeff Hagen. I'm sitting in as host this time, and each episode we are going to be visiting with some Martin County veterans. It's on a series that's called Their Sacrifices, Our Freedoms. And today I'm going to be visiting with Jim Richards and with Glen Hemiller. And I want to, first of all, thank you both for your service that you gave to the country, and also for being in Lenny's book. The book is entitled Martin County Veterans, Their Sacrifices, Our Freedoms. So thank you very much for joining us today. I would like for you to, each one of you, to kind of introduce yourself to those who are watching, and I guess tell us a little bit about yourself, maybe your past profession, where you're at right now, those type of things. So Jim, if you want to start.
Well, I guess I was born in Fairmont and went to school in the cities and went away for quite a few years at career paths and retired and came back to Sherburne, and here I am back in Martin County and loving it.
Good, good. Okay, and Glen?
Actually, grew up west of Tremont and graduated there and went on to college after graduation and had a draft number of 74.
Okay.
So therefore, when I was a sophomore, I got called and was in Vietnam for a while, came back, eventually got married and finished college, 3 kids. Now we're living in Spirit Lake, Iowa, and I was in banking for a number of years.
Okay, good. Well, we're here to talk about our military experiences, especially the ones that you had. So maybe, Glen, if you want to start this time, why don't you tell us about what part of the military you served in, where you served, when it was exactly that you served, and maybe some of the duties that you might have had at that point.
Well, got drafted and went to basic training at Fort Campbell, Kentucky.
Okay.
And from there, then I was transferred to an infantry company in Fort Benning. And we were actually, it was about half returning Vietnam vets and half new guys like myself. And we wound up being the enemy for the Rangers, because the Ranger camp was right next to us.
Okay.
And I was there about 3-4 months, and I got my orders for Vietnam.
Mm-hmm.
So went there and did some perimeter work, guard duty type stuff at Cameron Bay and Benoit, and wound up in Long Bin.
Okay.
And did some there, but my primary responsibility during the day was I kept track of the accidental deaths in country.
Oh, really? Okay.
So if you died from snake bites or drownings or electrocutions or wherever, you crossed my desk.
Okay.
Yeah.
So was that for the Department of Defense, or who was it you had to keep
United
track
States Army.
The Army itself.
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah.
Okay. Very interesting. Well, Jim, how about yourself? Tell us a little bit about your military experience.
Well, I graduated from McAllister back in '67 and had to do something quick, or who knows what would have happened. So
Sure.
I joined the Air Force and turned into a 90-day wonder, and wound up flying fighters in Vietnam, and that was by choice. The F-100 was what I wound up flying, and that was a difficult airplane to fly, but once mastered, you felt pretty good about it.
Mm-hmm.
And our job was basically dropping iron bombs on the bad guys and
Okay.
trying to come home in one piece, and it worked out in my case.
You mentioned the F-100. I guess I'm not familiar with that. What type of a...
I'm older than you are, Jeff. That's a single-seat fighter,
Okay.
single engine, and
So it was just you then on these flights and
Yeah, singles.
on these missions.
yep, pretty
Okay.
much.
Okay, very interesting. Well, is there anything that either of you can think as far as a special or an interesting situation that happened, or maybe something that took place that kind of changed things for you there? Is there any experience you had or anybody you met? Was there interesting people in your company? Those type of things that you can think of. Either one of you, Jim or...
Well, morale was sky high in the outfit I was in. I was very fortunate.
Okay.
So we were basically doing, I guess in a nutshell, trying to do the land of the free and home of the brave deal, and we're proud of it. And yeah, there was a lot of excitement. Like they say, there's lots of moments of boredom and dropping bombs in the jungle, and then moments of stark raving terror. And I had the unfortunate experience of having to punch out or bail out of an F-100 due to ground fire in Laos.
Okay.
But was rescued by the good guys, and I'm very grateful.
Okay.
And I'm not an atheist. And there you have it in a nutshell.
Sure.
That's a long story. We could go on and on, but I'll hand it over to Glen.
Okay. All right.
Well, I didn't punch out of an aircraft, and I'm glad for that. But as far as stories are concerned, everybody has them, and they're numerous in nature. And I've always people have asked me, "Were you afraid of dying?" And I'm going, well, not necessarily, because that's gonna happen eventually, whether it's here or someplace else, and you don't disregard danger so much. You just kind of, I think, learn to live with it, and do the best job you can as far as thinking.
Right.
If your life is being threatened or in danger, and for yourself and for your buddies, and like Jim says, the stories could go on for days, but we don't have that kind of time.
Sure. Do either of you have anyone that you still remain in contact with that you served with over there?
I had two fellas. Actually, one was my best man in my wedding.
Oh, really?
And he lives in the cities now, and the other one, unfortunately, committed suicide about 4 years after he got out of service. So.
Okay. And Jim, how about you?
Yeah, funny you should say that. I just got off the phone with my buddy yesterday, who's my roommate in Vietnam. We were both fighter pilots.
Okay.
And we always talk over those stories. But yeah, it's nice to be alive and home, so to speak.
That's right. That's very good. How did the military service influence your life? Now, you were drafted, and you were younger, like myself. When I went in, I was 26, so I was considered the grandpa of the group. But for you, how did your military experience influence? Did it influence your life in any way, or how did it?
Well, absolutely. I learned, basically taught me a trade, so that when I got out, I followed up with the aviation end of things and went to work for Delta Airlines.
Oh, okay.
And put in a career there. Came home and retired at Fox Lake out there by Sherburne, and met my wife. And hopefully I'm living happily ever after from here on in.
Keep your wife happy, then you're happy.
Happy wife, good life.
That's right. Glenn, how about you?
Well, I don't have a trade that came out of the service, but I guess it was the fact that I was there, and the appreciation for the United States and those freedoms that we have here that weren't there.
Sure.
And that was obvious. And so you develop that appreciation for that, and I don't know, as far as trades or anything like that, if you do a lot of perimeter work, and Jim would as well, with the flying with the aircraft, you have to be pretty fine-tuned into what's happening out in front, and the armament that you have and things like that, and always be on the lookout, and that's the way it was.
Sure. Question I want to ask both of you, and that's something I ask people a lot of times, no matter whether it's military or otherwise, but if you had the opportunity to do it over again, would you do it?
Absolutely. If the bell rang to go tomorrow, I'd be on it in a heartbeat and consider it a blessing.
Okay. That's very
Feel the same way.
Yeah.
It was maybe not the greatest experience in the world, but glad I served, and I would do it again.
Yeah, I agree. And I think if you talk to a lot of veterans, they probably say the same thing, just because of what it does and what you're doing for your country and for the freedom that we enjoy here in this country. So, well, I want to thank you both very much. Is there anything else you want to maybe add that we didn't talk about, or is there anything special that may come to mind, or anything like that?
Well, I'm just good going on getting this going, Lenny.
Yeah.
And it's an honor.
Yeah, if you haven't had a chance to read his book, it's really a good book. It has, I think, it was 87 or something like, or 82 stories in it, all Martin County veterans and their story of military service. So it was very good. So, well, I want to thank you again both for your service and also for joining us here today, telling a little bit more about yourselves. And want to thank you also for joining us today. I want to also thank our viewers, our sponsors, for making this show possible. The family of Mike Gary, Sweet Financial Partners, Erpelding Voigt and Company, CPAs, and also Lee C. Prentice, American Legion Post 36 in Fairmont. I want to thank everyone for that. And also want to thank you for not only for watching this program, but when you get a chance to and you see a veteran out there, thank them for their service, no matter when they served, because they did something that they saw as important and they realized it was important, and you should realize it's important too for what the service that they did. So thanks again, and we'll see you again next time.
Hello, I'm Jim Marushin, and welcome to Out of the Past, a series where the Martin County Historical Society focuses on local history. Today, I'm going to be talking with our guest, Frank Winzenburg, and we'll be speaking about the history of restaurants in our area. First, Frank, would you like to tell us a little bit about yourself?
We've recently returned to Fairmont after being gone for about 35 years. We moved away in 1980. Before that, I was the business manager of the Fairmont school system. And when we moved from here, I began the job of Director of Business Affairs for the Wayzata School District. When I started at Wayzata, we were the 17th largest school district in the state of Minnesota, and when I left there, we were the 10th largest. So it gives you an indication of how much growth room they had in the school district there.
Sure. Frank, now you've been here for quite some time, and you've seen plenty of restaurants come and go over the years. Why don't you tell us about some of your favorites?
Oh boy, I don't know. I don't know if I'd term it as being one of our favorites or not, but I did compile a list here of restaurants that I recalled from the past.
Sure.
I would say that these typically run about 1940 to 1980.
Okay, sure.
The first one that I have listed here is Millie's Cafe. Millie's was located just down the block here, about a half a block. Mm-hmm. And interesting thing about Millie was that I remember he only had one arm.
Oh,
but you couldn't tell it by the service that he gave, because he gave wonderful service. Mm-hmm. And if my memory serves me right, I think that they didn't have tables there. It was just a counter service, very small restaurant. Then there was a Potter's Cafe. Potter's that was located on Main Street. I think the telephone office is where that Potter's was at that time.
Sure. Now, was there a difference between a cafe and a restaurant? I know the terms might be interchangeable today, but
I was pretty small at the time, so to me it was just, either one was just a place to eat.
Sure.
So I'd call Millie's a cafe, but if it was a sit-down, I'd probably call it a restaurant.
Okay.
Oh, and then another one that I recall, and it was right along a neighbor to this building. Well, that was Olander's hamburger shop. Mm-hmm.
Reuben Olander owned that, and was put out a good product of hamburgers and malts. And basically that was the menu.
Sure.
But he did a good business. But he died, I would say, around 1940, and they had no children, so they just closed the doors and disposed of the business.
Sure.
Another one that I remember, it was across the street from the Mexican restaurant here and across the street from the Opera House, and that was owned by a person by the name of Miles Jos, Kjos. And I'm going to mention sometime today about the fact that it's owned by certain people, but I don't recall the name of the restaurants.
Sure.
His is one that I don't recall the name of his restaurant, but he was well known for having a sour cream pancake, and put out an excellent product. But it was just such a small building that he couldn't cater to very big crowds. The building is still there, but I believe it's empty at this time.
Sure.
Another one that was along this this row here, it was right across the alley from Millie's Cafe, and that was Burton's. And I'm not sure whether they had any sit-down tables for eating or not. It too was small, but they might have had a couple of tables there.
Sure.
Another one that I recall is Kurt and Cease Myers. They originally were located next to the theater, next to I think at that time it was the Lake Theater, and when the Lake Theater and the Sweet Shop burned down, they relocated to the West Blue Earth Avenue. And the Sweet Shop was located on Downtown Plaza, just down a half a block from the theater.
Okay.
I have a hard time remembering exactly when they changed theater names, because originally it was the Strand Theater, and then it was changed to the Lake Theater.
Oh.
And it was the Lake Theater when the fire consumed most of the businesses in that block.
Sure. Now, Frank, we've talked about a number of different restaurants here. To me, it's surprising that we had so many restaurants here at the same time. Were they drawing a lot of people from out of town at that time, or kind of how did so many restaurants survive and exist at the same time?
I'm going to have to guess, because I was pretty small then, but because I don't think a lot of people that lived in town went out to eat a lot.
Sure.
So probably they drew a lot of the farm people and maybe people from smaller towns around here.
Okay.
Okay, another one close by where we are now, it was on the corner of First Street and Downtown Plaza, ended up being City Hub. It started out by being the city drug, and it was owned by brothers, the Edwards brothers.
Okay.
The Edwards brothers' brother that was the pharmacist died, and they couldn't keep up the pharmaceutical business. So rather than sell it or change the name, they changed it to a City Hub from the City Drug. And then the one brother kept running it just as a restaurant and a novelty shop.
Sure. So that had been a pharmacy, and then they converted it over to a restaurant.
Right, yeah.
Oh, that's interesting.
Yeah, but there wasn't much conversion that was necessary in that case.
Oh.
Another one was near the Sentinel, and that was the Maid-Rite Cafe.
Oh, I don't think I've heard of that one.
People from Iowa, I think it was an Iowa company, and people from Iowa would probably be more familiar with the Maid-Rite. I remember when we moved to the cities, there was a Maid-Rite Cafe fairly close to where we lived.
Oh.
And I was surprised at that time to see them, because there weren't many that were north of Fairmont.
So was that excuse me? So was that sort of a an early chain restaurant?
Yes, it
Okay.
was. Hmm.
Sure.
And it's still in business today
Oh,
as a chain restaurant.
interesting.
What I remember as being the corner cafe from the corner of 4th Street and Downtown Plaza. At that time, there was the Borchert gas station.
Okay.
And at the end of their little office was a small cafe, and that's what I refer to as the corner cafe.
Which corner was that on, Frank? Is that corner down there? We're talking about like the Congregational Church, what a lot of people might remember as the hardware store.
It was Katy Corner from the Congregational Church.
Okay, sure.
When I was going to school, it was owned by Harry Henricks. Harry's son was in my class in high school,
Okay,
so I knew it fairly well.
sure.
Then after Harry and his wife retired, Corwin Duflo took over the business, and he had it for a number of years, and I think he just retired. Another one on Downtown Plaza was Searle's Cafe. No, Searle's Restaurant, because it was a fairly good-sized restaurant, and they had a lot of sit-down. They had a good local business, I would say.
Sure.
And
Would
it was-
that be more akin to a restaurant we think of today, like a Perkins or a Beantown, those types of places?
Yeah, right.
Sure.
Yep. The Fairmont Hotel was just up at the end. Oh, it was across the street to the west from the old from Anderson's building, and they had served good breakfasts and dinners. And what they were particularly known for was their family Sunday dinners.
Oh,
And it was usually crowded for those dinners, and that was their dress-up affairs. People,
Okay.
of course, at that time dressed up differently than they do today. And when a family would go out to eat, all of the males would be wearing suits, tie, so forth, and the women would have on their best dresses.
what would the menu for a Sunday dinner like that entail when you're all dolled up?
Oh, probably say probably a nice chicken dinner or a roast beef dinner or something like that, with all the works.
So, Frank, a lot of that food sounds really good. What were the prices like in those days?
They sound pretty cheap by today's standards, because I think probably for $1.25, $1.50, you could get a really nice dinner.
Oh, wow.
And the nice dinner probably also included a nice tablecloth, linen tablecloth.
Ooh, man. Eating in style.
I'll say
Well, those are very interesting, Frank. Now, there must have been more downtown.
there are quite a few more, yes. People will probably remember a lot of these. There was Spike Gorham's, the Green Lantern, there's the Colonial Inn, Bergeson's, the Bus Depot, the G&W, the Iron Grill Cafe, McNulty's, Donut Shop, Koenig's, and Koenig's would also be referred to by the Ben Franklin store too.
All right, now, Frank, out of the ones you just mentioned in that list there, one that stands out to me is McNulty's. That must refer to Jim McNulty, the baseball manager, right?
Yep, you're right. That's the reason it was called the dugout.
Oh.
Jim apparently needed another additional livelihood, so that he opened up the tavern, and it was it got a good customer participation there too.
Sure. Now, Frank, that's a very impressive list. That to me, that's very shocking that there were that many. Now, there's got to be a few more, right?
Yes, yeah, there are a few more. One is called the Town Pump. There's also the Fairmont Cafe, Laurel's, Highland House. Actually, those are getting a little bit out west of downtown.
Sure.
There's the Edie's. I'd say that probably finishes the downtown restaurants.
Oh, that's a very impressive list. Now, Frank, on the ones you just mentioned there, one that I've heard about but don't really know a lot about is the town pump. Can you go on about that one a little bit?
The only thing I can tell you about that, Jim, is that it was located in Wallace's store
Oh,
on the first level. So
Sure.
maybe it gave the ladies a nice place to stop to have lunch after they did their shopping at Wallace's department store.
yeah. Now, Frank, that list, you must have done a lot of research on these, right?
Well, just memory, Jim, not research so much. It was just that I went down in my mind, I went down block by block and
Wow.
picked them out and wrote them from there.
Well, that's very impressive. Well, thanks again, Frank, for sharing that with us.
You're welcome.
That entire list is just very long, very impressive. And to think that's only the downtown restaurants.
Right.
Yeah. Frank, would you honor us again by coming back and maybe telling us about the ones around the rest of Fairmont?
I'd be happy to do that. We've got an extensive list of those that were out
Sure.
in the rest of the town. Also, not as long a list, but it will be interesting to review those too.
Awesome. Well, yeah, I will be happy to come back and we'll hear about those another time. Frank, thank you so much for sharing your history with us today.
Yep, you're welcome, Jim. It was my pleasure.
Well, everybody, that's all the time we've got today. Tune in again to another episode of Out of the Past, and please join us at the Martin County Historical Society sometime. Thank you.
Martin County on TV, a second look.
Joining me today is Chad.
Hey,
Welcome
good to be
to
here.
Our Story Studios.
Good to be here.
Chad, share with the folks who you are and what you do.
I am a lawn care company here based out of Fairmont. We predominantly service fertilizer programs with weed control. And we'll talk a little bit later about how that's evolved. But we've been doing lawn care work since 2008.
Wow.
Purchased the business from a local company here in town, a local family here in town.
Awesome. So share with the folks how this has evolved when you say you started in 2008. Tell us a little bit more about how it was then and how it is today.
Well, back in 2008, I got a phone call from a classmate of mine. His dad passed away, so they were looking at moving the business along, and it was an opportunity, so I took it and been moving forward ever since. And we started with about 200 fertilizing and spray clients, and we've more than doubled that since
Wow.
then. So that's been good. And as we were doing that, you get one person to ask you to mow their lawn, and the longer I've done this, the more I realize that a good lawn, there's more to it than just fertilizing and spraying for weeds. So if you mow at the proper height, that makes a big difference on the health of your lawn. So that's kind of why I got into the mowing part, because of, I don't want to say dissatisfied customers, but customers wondering why their lawn wasn't as nice as they
Totally
felt it
taking
should.
care of all their lawn needs
Correct.
in every
Correct.
aspect. Very cool.
So then we got into the mowing part, and then with that also that kind of led into us servicing some irrigation work, because if you don't water it properly, it creates issues with your lawn also. So we started saying, if we can take care of your irrigation, we can make sure it gets watered properly to give you the best lawn possible. And then, of course, the key to any business is good employees, especially around small business. So in order to keep my key employees around, we started snow removal,
Also, now you keep them year round and do the whole
We do
package.
the whole package,
Wow.
yes. So it has evolved quite a bit, and it all based on giving everybody the best lawn possible. That's our focus, that's our goal, and all of it kind of comes together. And I tell everybody all the time, it's a three-piece system, if you want to call it that. It's obviously us. It's 33% as far as the program, as far as the weed control and the fertilizer. It's proper mowing height. If you're not mowing at 3 inches or higher, you're putting a deficit to your lawn. And Mother Nature, giving your lawn an inch of water a week. That's kind of what the standards are, so that's what we shoot for.
Sure. Tell me, you mentioned employees. How many employees do you have?
We have 5 full-time employees
Wow.
right now, so it's kind of grown, and that's where the snow removal comes in. So some years are
better than others when it comes to
So I'm
snow.
sure of that.
But yeah, the last 2 years have been pretty rough. But this year's been welcome light year, if you want to call it that.
Absolutely.
it's been
So,
nice.
Chad, I know you're a Fairmont person, grew up in Fairmont. Share with the folks a little bit about you personally as far as family and such.
Yeah, I graduated here in Fairmont and been living here all my life. And I've got 3 kids, a wonderful wife, and yeah, I got a senior this year.
Senior.
Yep. So we're going through that, and yeah, I love this town.
Chad, I'm assuming you have some programs and some plans that people can take advantage of?
We do, and that's one of the things that it's really evolved into is packaging it all together. We have property maintenance, lawn care, and snow removal packages. So a year-round package, or you can do just I call it the growing season package. From April, depending
Sure.
on the weather, to the time it first snows. But we package it all together and divide it by 7. So back to the month, we'll say a monthly payment. And it works real well for people because it's those that are on a budget. They know what they're going to spend every month.
That's
for
awesome,
everything.
yeah.
So because a couple years when the snow's heavy, they don't like getting that $600-700 a month snow bill to where they know their set fees. So we contract, I'm going to say all but 2 or 3 people.
Really?
For the season. So everything's contracted. It's simple. It's easy. It works well for me because I can budget. It works well for them because
Well,
they can
and
budget.
as a person who would use it, how nice to know that it's just taken care of. You don't have to worry about your lawn. You don't have to worry about your snow removal. You don't have to worry about the grass is growing or not growing and
Right.
Weeds and such. That has to be a tremendous asset to anyone that owns a home.
Obviously our goal is to give you the best curb appeal we can, so when we do this, I'll just give you our typical rundown for the season. When we do a property maintenance packages, first thing we do is go out, pick up any leaves that were left over from the fall. So
Okay.
we go through the lawn, clean it up, clean out the landscape, make sure everything's nice and clean, and then we can start with our lawn care program. And then we just go on a monthly mowing, trimming cycle,
Maintenance thing,
maintenance.
yeah,
Yeah,
you
just
bet.
the typical mow. We also take care of the details. That's what I think we come in and offer a little bit more service than some of the other companies might, is we make sure that there's no weeds growing in the cracks of your sidewalks and your driveways. We trim the shrubs and your landscape. We take care of that twice a year. So in the spring and the fall, we make sure that that's taken care of.
Now, are all these custom, obviously, because some people have shrubs, some people have large yards. You come out, you give them an idea what this would be or will be as far as cost,
Yes,
correct?
I quote it every year. I send out a new contract and give them the opportunity to add, subtract,
Sure.
change, do what have you, and works really well. Like I said, I've got a lot of people that are taking advantage of it, and it works well for both parties. And that way we got the guaranteed work and they got the guaranteed
Absolutely.
cost, so it works really well. So that's how the program has evolved, and it keeps growing every year because they like that they don't have to call 4 or 5 different people to take care of the services we do. We just take care of it. Ask how many homeowners have cut a cord on an electric hedge trimmer.
Absolutely.
So I hear that story quite a bit,
I'm sure.
so they don't have to worry about that. But, part of the package too is freeing up some garage space. I always tell everybody I could free up a single stall garage space with the services we offer. You will not need that stuff anymore.
So tell me, Chad, difficulties. Are there projects that turn into bigger, or people have more needs that you need to help with?
There is. The biggest call we get about is bad areas in the lawn.
Of course.
Every lawn isn't. You look at the football field. Everybody wants a football field or a baseball field or like the golf course, right?
Yep.
And I'll use the golf course as an example. If you go in the rough out into the trees, the lawn's usually not pretty good underneath the trees, right? So it's kind of the same thing at your house. There's a couple streets here in town that are full of maple trees. We all love our maple trees because they change leaves, they look beautiful. But at the end of the day, it is very difficult to get grass to grow under a maple tree just because they're so dense, the shade. So any heavy shaded areas cause problems. The tree roots are so close to the surface, they're taking all the nutrients and the water from the turf itself. I've also got some areas that between fences and trees and houses, there's no airflow, so you get a lot of moss growing, and it never dries out, so it causes moss to grow. And at the end of the day, there's also, the soils are just poor. We do a lot of soil samples, send them to the lab, and everybody's pH is high and missing micronutrients, so in our programs, we try to add some of that stuff back in our everyday program. But if you really want to move that process along, there's we do a lot of individual programs and put products on based on what the soil sample says. So,
Well, just from what you said right there with these problems you're addressing, makes it even more appealing to have a service that can take care of all these issues.
yeah, it's nice to be right around the corner.
Absolutely. And now you're right here in town.
We are right here in
So
town.
I'm sure you have a website, Facebook, and the like.
We do. You
Okay.
can look us up anytime.
And they'll find pictures of projects and what's going on and different things.
We are. Mike's been taking care of that and does a real good job with
It's
it.
become a big part of our life.
It has.
It's how to maintain this,
It
not
has.
even have it, but to
has.
maintain and put it together.
It is, and I'd like to just say thanks to all the clients that have supported me and my company for the last since 2008. So, and will continue to strive to do our best for you and do what we can.
Well, we're proud to have you on the show, a local business doing well and serving our community. Thank you, Chad.
Thanks, Jeff. Appreciate it.
Martin County on TV, a second look.
Well, there you have it, another episode of Martin County on TV. We hope you enjoyed this episode, and we welcome you to tune in again. Thank our sponsors for making this happen, and remember, it's not just the past, but the present that tells our story.